Hello, I'm Samir Schultz. Welcome to Therapy Now, the podcast. Today we have with us Elza, founder of Therapy Now and many other things. I think to get started, Elza, tell us a little bit more about yourself so people get a better feel for who you are and what you are about.
So it's difficult to start this conversation without talking about therapy now, obviously. But I think just to start off, I am a mom and I am me and I am also a business owner and I am also a massive advocate for mental health. So part of starting this journey was the fact that I have been working in the addiction field for 23 years, 25 years, and myself struggled with an addiction and struggled with an eating disorder and struggled with very high levels of depression. And then I needed help. So I needed to get a counselor and I did get help.
Okay.
So that's kind of where my journey started, and it's kind of just snowballed from there.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Especially when we have our own journey with mental health, which then inspires or motivates the joining of, like, I guess you could call it like a healing profession. So, looking at therapy and healing, what is your understanding or view of what therapy is, and why do you feel that it's important that people should be engaging in therapy?
So I believe therapy or counseling is a connection with another person that is able to hold an extremely safe space for somebody where they can let their defenses down and be themselves or figure out who they are. And I believe part of figuring out who you are can only happen when you're in a safe space. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where my therapy journey started, where I was with a counselor who I was able to build a relationship with. So that's what I believe in is part of therapy. And I believe that that creates 100% part of the healing. Because you've got somebody that can mirror to you without judgment what is happening for you. Um, so yeah, that's to me is one of the biggest parts of healing. And I just want to add on to that and say that there's so much research currently being done about the opposite of mental health is connection. And I think that the missing part with that is the fact that connection happens with self. It's not just
Yeah.
connection with other people, but we can only connect with ourselves when we've got some form of connection with another human being.
Mm.
So I think that a counselor fulfills that role, a safe counselor fulfills that role.
Yeah. I saw a quote. I'm not exactly sure who started the quote because there's like different people who they cite the quote from, but it's basically this idea that the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our life. And I found that quite interesting and quite profound. And like you saying as well, I feel that an extension is that it's not just the relationships we have with other people, but also the one that we have with ourselves. Because I think the relationship we have with ourselves, we kind of project or use it as a template to connect to other people. Um, so, I mean, in the therapeutic space, I don't think we always touch on elements of spirituality or religion. Do you feel that that would also play a role or factor into therapy or connection or relationships?
It's such a difficult topic, I think, because I'm not religious at all, and that doesn't mean I'm against anyone that is religious. I believe anyone gets to choose what they want to believe in. Um, but I think I am spiritual, just because I believe there is something bigger than me out there. But I don't believe that people should have to come to counseling in order to find that. And I don't believe that that's a prerequisite for counseling. I also think that through my counseling relationship, I was able to start believing that there was something bigger than me. Because I started believing that the world wasn't all bad. So I think it's difficult for people when they are coming from a place of severe poverty or severe pain to then still be leaning on something when they feel like the world has let them down. And I think that spirituality can grow once you are feeling super more connected with other people.
Well, 100%. I think I tend to agree with you as well. And my understanding of spirituality is that it's the way in which we connect with ourselves, and by extension, with anything or everything else. Um, so, I mean, this is the Therapy Now podcast. So, seeing that you are the founder, what is it that birthed the idea of Therapy Now? And what would you say is your dream or end goal with Therapy Now?
That's a big question, but I can answer it. So what birthed it was really, I think it happened quite organically. COVID hit, and I was working in an in-person setting in a rehabilitation center, and the rehabilitation center had to close down. And I was working in a trauma-informed setting for addiction care, and it was absolutely an incredible experience. And the majority of the clients that we had, they were international and they had to leave. And so I founded Therapy Now with two other people. And they then unfortunately, fortunately handed the business over to me, but also because they needed to go on their own adventures. I'm still in good contact with them. But then what really happened was the fact that we started seeing that there was such a need for people who were struggling with their mental health, and also because it was online. And we were already doing online counseling for years prior to that with our international clients. So we just kind of moved it online, and then it slowly started growing. And then what then happened was I started speaking to counselors, and I was always aware that with counseling, there's this massive myth, especially in the addiction industry, where counselors get paid absolutely nothing. And you have to work triple as hard to earn absolutely nothing. So I really wanted to create a platform where counselors get paid what they're worth, what they believe that they're worth. Because counseling, if you're not getting paid for what you're worth, you can't help people. And I think that there's such an idea like counselors should just be helping people. We should be volunteering, and we should be giving out free sessions. And the reality is, if you're struggling financially and you can't eat, and you can't be giving what is needed for your family, your mental health struggles and it suffers. And when your mental health suffers, you can't be helping other people. So I really wanted Therapy Now to back counselors as much as help people. So I want healthy financial counselors to create a healthy service for those that are struggling. So that's really the balance act with Therapy Now. So the vision you asked
Awesome.
is that we have counselors that get paid what they're worth and what they feel that they're worth. And the other side of it is to help as many people as possible. That's really our aim. And that we don't turn people away, and we don't say to people, well, because you don't have money, you can't have a session. So we are looking for sponsorship and all of those kind of services. So that's the dream. And the dream is also for it to become, obviously, grow and and really be trauma informed and not diagnosis based.
Fantastic. So it sounds like the crux or essence of Therapy Now is person-centered and really tailored to the experience of, I'm not sure if you're going to call it clients, users, customers, as well as counselors, and kind of matching the counselor with client and vice versa, so that there's like a good fit between the two. And I feel that this work that you seek to engage in is quite profound in that it's looking to balance what's actually quite out of balance or not finding a sense of harmony. Because if you look at the globe, mental health is gaining traction, but it still needs so much work. And if we bring it closer to home in South Africa, I think it's less than 5% of the health budget actually goes towards mental health. And if we look at what mental health is, okay, look, I specifically specialize in community mental health. That was my training. And it encompasses so much more than just mental well being. It is multifaceted and multi layered and touches on all areas of our lives, actually. And I remember I was on the radio the one day and we were discussing mental health. And someone called in and said, it's not really that important. I will just kind of pray about it. And I said, I can truly appreciate that response because it is it enables you to connect to something greater than yourself, which is beautiful. It gives you structure, purpose, and it can assist with your healing. But let's say you fall out of a tree and you break your arm. First gonna pray or first get the help that you immediately require and then pray. And mental health is the same. Just because we can't see it happening doesn't mean it's not there. It's about looking at healing and processing and basically being the best version of ourselves that we can be. And I think that it's also quite misunderstood, like what this healing journey or process is, because it's not just about so much trauma, let me deal with it. Like, sure, that's an element of the work. But the other side is also looking at what would bring about more action and fulfillment and greater presence, deeper connections as well. So it's like this dance that we engage in. And I mean, it's by no means like a magic pill or a medical that we just wave a wand and magic everything is better, because it is a process. Also, like tools and strategies that we can use for right now. And I mean, on that note, also, what do you feel was. You see, I don't like using the word like failure, so I'm going to ask instead, what was your biggest learning experience?
Through the work with Therapy Now, starting the company or being part of it, all of it?
I will leave it open to you.
Shame.
It's
I
an ended
actually,
question.
no, thank you. I mean, I actually thought about it. I've been thinking about it quite a lot. And I think the disappointment in people, I think, has been the hardest. I think because I am such a people person and I am so driven to help. I think that it's been quite heartbreaking for me, and I've shared this in private with you, and I've shared it, um, and with other people at Therapy Now. But it's been the disappointment of counselors that have entered Therapy Now and women. And I've always been a big one with women support women and women work and women empowerment. And that was one of the big things why I started Therapy Now as well, was because I understood in our community and in South Africa the big need for women and men that needed to stay at home and look after their children. And that's part of the beauty of Therapy Now, is that people can stay at home, and dip in and out of sessions and know that their kids are okay. Or if kids are, sick and need to stay at home. So I wanted that, so that once again, women can be at home. And the biggest disappointment for me and the heartbreak and the learning curve has been the betrayal and the feeling that, you know, I've now gotten what I needed from therapy. Now I'm going to take the clients and I'm going to run with it. And I think that's just been a really big learning curve for me around, you know, people, you know, do disappoint you, and you just got to keep moving forwards and then implement new strategies and work hard and figure things out. But I think that's really been the hardest lessons for me, has been that.
Okay, I mean that's quite a lot of different things. Yeah. What would the learning behind that be? Because I mean, it's like on one hand, it's like a sense for me, anyways. It brings up like the sense of loss and mistrust, and I mean, as you said earlier, like the work is about building trust and safe spaces and that kind of thing. So, how do you navigate that and try to like find balance?
So I think because I have a really good small group of very close confidants, and I have an amazing supervisor, and I also have an amazing therapist. But I navigated through it being a learning curve, and I navigated through, I've got to open my eyes, trust my gut. And when I realize things are off, just be like, you know, this is happening. And I've always been one to struggle with confrontation. So, and I trust blindly. So I'm always like looking for the good. So I've had to open my eyes and just be like, you know, people are good and people do come into counseling because they want to help. But, you know, I don't know the history, and I don't know why they are doing what they are doing when they do it. But I do know it's coming from, it's got nothing to do with me. It's not personal. And that's been the big thing. Even though I do feel like therapy now is personal and I feel like that gets attacked, I've learned that, you know, what they do is, it's them. Like, it's not me. I just got to have better boundaries around it.
I mean that's fantastic. I mean, everything you've said is quite valuable. But what I'd like to highlight is what you said around yourself being in therapy as well. And I'm not pointing that out to say Alda's in therapy.
No,
I myself have also been in therapy, and I'm constantly like going back, refilling my cup, making get a sense of my own situation, processing feelings, making sense of thought. And I think that there's like this myth or stigma attached to being in therapy and not realizing that as a therapist, we are also human beings. And it's not like because we're the therapists and we have the tools and we have everything that our lives are perfect, like the fairy tale life. Because we're human, we're also processing. And, oh, let me ask you the question actually. When looking for a therapist, what do you think are things that we should look at before booking a session, or are there certain questions we should maybe ask? What do you think?
I think that, yeah, absolutely. I do believe that we have to change the narrative around counseling, doctors, anyone that's in a position of power, and we get to ask difficult questions. So you get to go into a counseling session, actually interview your counselor or your doctor or your whoever you want. Just because you think they know more than you, it doesn't mean that they're all the be all and end all. They're still human. So you get to say to them, like, whatever you want. So I always say, so often when I see couples and people want to go off into individual sessions, I say to them, go to the therapist and go and ask the questions like, how do you deal with divorce? How do you deal with depression? Do you have supervision? You get to ask those questions and not feel, I understand it might feel scary to ask them, but you're allowed to.
Yeah.
So I interview everyone you see and see if there's a connection. The biggest thing is the relationship. So if you have a relationship with the person, if you feel like you can go on a journey with them, then that's okay. But also know that you will be resistant in that journey. So you've got to build trust. So it's actually like any relationship you go into. It's like I say, I spoke to a company a couple of months ago and they said it's a bit like speed dating. And I was like, absolutely. It's a bit like speed dating. You go in, you check it out, you see if you like them, and then, you go to the next person or you don't. Yeah, so that would be my recommendation.
Okay. So I personally have also experienced really fantastic counselors or therapists and ones that weren't so great. Is there anything that we would be able to do to not let a negative experience color our lenses towards therapy itself?
The way I look at it is I have had 5 or 6 therapists throughout my adult life. One when I was a young teen, and I obviously know why I left one and went to the other, but it's okay. Do you know what I mean? And you've got to kind of see that as part of the dating process. You kind of go in, you're not sure what you're going to get, and I understand that you put everything out there in the first session. It's a full-blown history taking sometimes, so it's a very vulnerable experience. But you get to in that first session also say, just pause. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to dive that deep yet. I want to check it out. Let's see, if I want to have a second session. So you don't have to lay it all out there in the first session. I think that I would suggest. And then the second thing is, if you feel like you are not comfortable with somebody, you get to move on. And I think that that's the empowering thing. And I understand with mental health, it's really difficult because you're going in so vulnerable and so naked almost into this space. Like you're desperate. You're not going to therapy because, you feel like chocolate. You're going in because you're struggling. But you get to go in and say, I'm struggling and I only want to share this struggle with somebody that I really relate to and that I really like. And if I have a bad experience, and I know people have had bad experiences with me, do you know what I mean? As clients. And all I can say to them, I'm human and I make mistakes. But then it's about having that hard, difficult conversation in the counseling space and saying, you disappointed me as my counselor and I'm not happy with that. And I challenge anybody to go into their counseling space and have those conversations.
Yeah. I mean, well said. I feel a similar sentiment where the counseling space is actually the clients, not the therapist. Like the therapist is more of a space holder or facilitator of processes, but they're not. I even sometimes have said in sessions, like, yes, I have studied therapeutic stuff for many years and I am a counselor, I've got all the experience and all the stuff, but I'm an expert in that, not an expert in the client. And in actuality, the client is the expert of themselves. And my job is to serve them in the way that they need to be served, obviously within ethical bounds and all the rest of it, to help them through their process, be it to connect to themselves or work on relationships or whatever the issue concern may be. And even if it's just to celebrate something, I'm there to be happy with them, because that's part of our work. So I guess also something that you've been alluding to, different skills um, that could come up and the way that you've been navigating. So I'd like to ask you, maybe for three, what are three unique skills that have helped you to get to where you are now?
I'm thinking 3 unique skills. Vulnerability. I think vulnerability has been a big one for me. Admitting when I'm scared, admitting when I've made mistakes. And I'm a big one in talking to a team of counselors or people and saying, I'm not okay. How are you guys? Do you know what I mean? Like, I want
Yeah.
to be transparent as a leader, but also as a person. I don't want to hide things. So that to me is the one thing, being vulnerable and then making myself vulnerable to the fact that I could be rejected. That's been a big lesson for me, but I'm also okay with that. So that one is vulnerable. Because through starting therapy now, I've had to say why so many times. And my story is why I started it. So I can't lie about that. So that's been one. And then the other one is honesty. I'm a big one about honesty and ethics. So I believe that therapy now and any organization that I'm with has to have ethics, and I'm not meaning ethics as in write the script, these are the ethics. I mean, people need to have ethical standards that they stand by, and that means everyone gets to decide what their own ethical standards are, and we can talk about it and discuss it for there to be openness. I'm not at all closed minded, but there needs to be an honor to yourself as to where you stand as a counselor, because you are. And I love what you said earlier about we are literally just here mirroring our clients. So we have such a amount of power in holding someone's whole story. And we have to be able to be trusted to not abuse that power. So people trust us to tell their story. So from an ethical point of view, I'm just talking about holding a space that has courage and hope and safety for somebody. That's what I mean by ethics. And that's how I believe therapy now needs to be held. And that's why I also said the disappointment of people, where I feel like that is what we stand for. And if this company doesn't feel safe, then we can't have safe counselors and we can't have safe clients. So that those would be my 3 learning curves to create safety has been a big one.
Awesome. So that's vulnerability, honesty, and ethics. I was actually, while you were busy talking, when we have conversation and sometimes we slip into the space of not attentively listening and we start building up like little responses in the back of our heads. I actually caught myself doing that like right now. And I was like, she's saying honesty and then ethics. Like, what's the difference? And then I was about to say something and I'm busy building up like the stories in my head. And then I was like, maybe I must just listen. Like, if it will probably come up if I just allow it to speak. Um, then you did answer it, where the ethics and honesty is actually slightly different. Um, because for you, you mentioned ethics is around like a sense of honor or like a code in a sense of honor, courageousness, hope, fulfillment, satisfaction, that kind of thing. And actually very interesting because when you said it, I automatically assumed honesty and ethics is similar, because it is upholding like that code of honesty and ethics. And vulnerability, your first one, I absolutely love as well because I think that it's one of the most underrated qualities, that people are quite fearful of as well because it's like vulnerability. In one of my sessions, one of the clients was saying that vulnerability is like handing somebody else ammunition that could be used to hurt you while trusting that they won't. And I thought that was quite a powerful analogy. And I think that through the self work that we engage in, it actually enables deeper levels of vulnerability, because then we start becoming okay with what we're sharing. So then instead of handing out live ammunition, it's like we're actually handing out blanks, because now we feel safe within ourselves. So even if people are sharing whatever information about us, we feel more okay with it because we're okay with ourselves. We find that we are enough. We, in fact, are more than enough because we are powerful beyond measure. And I think it starts with vulnerability within the space. And I think we should actually look at the values and your, what do we call them, unique skills, because it sounds like a therapeutic modality actually, or like a framework, which is awesome. I mean, beautifully put. Also, in closing, is there anything that you would love to share with listeners, be it about your journey or anything?
I think asking for help is one of the hardest things in the world. I think I say that to everyone all the time. And it's one of the most courageous things somebody can do. And that's why we started Therapy Now, is because anybody that asks for help should be given help. If you have the courage to ask, you should be entitled to mental health care. So, and you should be entitled to have it on the platform of your choice with a counselor that you feel you can connect with. Because there's no point having a counseling session with somebody you're not going to connect with. It's pointless. It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So I believe that anybody that asks for help should be allowed to get help. I think that's the biggest thing for me.
Awesome. So, anybody that needs help, please check out Therapy Now and find the counselor that matches you. Because at Therapy Now, we are having conversations with a difference. And thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you next time.